Okay. So I like to start off with that video sometimes just for a couple of reasons. One is that this whole mindfulness thing is really something. It's taken root in modern culture, and for one of the fundamental reasons that it has taken root is there's so much beautiful and very real research about the efficacy of what I'm going to be sharing with you here this morning, the efficacy of what you'll be able to experience as part of the online program that we'll be offering, the Mindfulness-Based Stress Reduction Program. The other reason I like to show the video is, they're middle schoolers, and a lot of you I know are middle school teachers. I'm sure you relate, you hear a lot of that stuff all the time. The first time I watched the video, I was like, dang, that kind of sounds like me too. Like, I could still relate to so many of those things that they were worrying about. Maybe not so much, is my makeup right, or the content has changed a little bit, but that sense of overwhelm, that sense of not having enough time, not being good enough, where are the time, where's our days going, and just being that kind of that sense of overwhelm in the mind. It happens to all of us. So, a couple months ago, I did a program for some HR representatives, and I asked them if they were under stress. So I'll start there. Do you guys experience any stress as part of your daily lives? Right? So they had the exact same response, and group after group after group has the exact same response. We now laugh at that question. Why do we laugh? Because it's kind of like become a norm, right? It's like a given. We think that if you're, engaged, you care about your work, you care about your kids, you care about yourself, your family, etc., that there, of course, has to be a certain level of stress that goes along with it. But one of the things that we investigate in these practices, mindfulness-based stress reduction, is there a better way? Is there a more skillful way that we can be showing up for our day-to-day lives, both for ourselves and for others? So part of the main impetus for this specific, me coming out here today from Albuquerque and offering this 8-week online program, because we had a lot of meetings, phone meetings with the upper-ups, as part of your community. And we all want to, especially when you're educators, I see this a lot of times with healthcare practitioners as well. You hear of something, it can be of benefit, so you immediately want to share it with others. You want to share it with the kids, or you want to share it with your family, or whatever it is. But the truth of it is that the best way to be able to share it with others is to first do it for yourself. Very hard to encourage people to reduce their stress when you're freaking out, right, and experiencing it, right? There's a beautiful saying that says, don't be afraid that your kids aren't listening to you. Be afraid that they're watching you, right? Because how they're learning how to show up in the world is directly dependent on how they see us show up in the world. So what we really wanted to provide here today, and with the offering of the online 8-week program, is to start with you guys. To first, kind of expand on what your superintendent said, to care for you, to get some self-care methodologies, some very real evidence-based, research-backed practices that you can start to utilize on a daily basis to help you first begin to reduce your own stress. And then learning applications of how to begin to share that with others, share it in the classroom, etc. So the reason that I'm the director of the Mindful Center in Albuquerque is because about 30 years ago, my father was the president of a real estate company in Albuquerque. And if you were to ask him, do you experience stress? He would have kind of said what you did, kind of laughed. Of course. He actually even thought he kind of thrived off of it a little bit. He thought it gave him that little bit of mental edge, popped him out of bed in the morning. And then one day, seemingly out of the blue, and I use this word seemingly for a very specific reason that I'll circle back to, seemingly out of the blue, his stomach seized up, caused him such horrible pain, he was dropped to the ground and ended up calling 911. They took him to the hospital in an ambulance, and what do they do when you have something physically going on with you is they run all the tests they can in the book to see what could possibly be causing the physical pain. They couldn't find anything. Over the next 5 or so hours, the pain resolved. He was sent home, chalked it up to bad mustard, maybe something bad that he ate, whatever it is. What do you do? Well, about a year later, it happened again. And if you think about the type of pain that would cause you to dial 911, it ain't small potatoes, right? And this time there are two things happening. There's actual pain, physical pain of the stomach seizing up, but now he also has the fear. He's thinking, oh gosh, there really is something wrong here. They just must have missed it last time. Again, they ran all the tests they could. Again, they couldn't find anything. Over the next several years, it started to happen with increasing frequency. where when it was at its worst, my father was going into and out of the urgent care or the ER almost every other month with absolutely debilitating stomach pain. Until eventually one of his doctors looked at his big fat folder of negative test results and said, "Have you ever tried meditation?" My dad, being the very modern Western guy that he was like, "Heck no, that's something weird that like hippies do. Why would I ever meditate, right? He, like a lot of us, have an image of what it means to meditate. I know before I got into the practice, my image of a meditator was like some really flexible guy, big long beard, scantily clad, out in the desert somewhere meditating. And it's hard to imagine what are the, how does it integrate with our modern busy lifestyles? But the thing with my father was that he suddenly found himself motivated to perhaps learn something new. Because the way that he'd been doing things in his life up until this moment in time was suddenly no longer working for him. And lo and behold, this phenomenon actually happens to every single one of us on the planet. We develop a certain way of being in the world, what I call a certain methodology for showing up. Maybe you're the extrovert, maybe you're the introvert, maybe you're the class clown, maybe you're the planner, maybe you're the worrier. Whatever it is, we all develop a certain style for being in the world, and it functions for us for a certain amount of time. That's why we develop it in the first place. But then, as happens to every single one of us, is that things change. Things change. Anyone in here not aging? No, yeah, you should probably get up and teach the class. No, there's a big one right there. So right there, our bodies are definitely changing. I certainly don't feel or look the way I did, 5 years ago, whatever it is. The people around us change. Our jobs change. Our roles, both professionally and personally, change. Our minds are definitely changing all the time. And if we keep trying to do things in the same way that we've always done them, what happens for a lot of people is we start to feel a little bit stuck. I hear this a lot of times from students. They say, I used to be able to sleep, or I used to be able to eat whatever I wanted, or I used to be less reactive with my kids or my coworkers. I used to be friendlier, or this is a big one that I hear a lot recently. I used to be happier. I just used to be happier. And all we're kind of recognizing here is that things have changed. Things have changed. And this can be a perfect opportunity to begin to learn something new. So that was definitely the case with my father. He said, "What the heck? I never thought I wanted, what's this mindfulness crap?" Sorry, but that's what he said. "What's this mindfulness crap all about? Meditation, whatever. But how I'm doing things isn't working for me, so let me give it a try." So we started to read a lot of books on mindfulness, read a lot of books on meditation. Eventually, he came across a book called Full Catastrophe Living by a doctor. And again, this was important to my father, Dr. Jon Kabat-Zinn. And it was a whole book devoted to the people going through these 8-week programs, which we're offering for you, excuse me, in this online program, 8-week programs called Mindfulness-Based Stress Reduction. Some of the teachings and some of the very real benefits that the people would experience through not only going through the program, but then putting the practices into play in their daily lives. The book resonated so deeply with my father that he eventually took a leave of absence from the real estate world and went out and became an intern with the author, Dr. Jon Kabat-Zinn, who was teaching these programs at the University of Massachusetts Medical Center. And something really kind of amazing happened to my father, and I see it happen for students all the time, and it can happen for every single one of us in this room. What my father started to learn how to be able to do through these practices and through this program is he started to be able to learn how to more skillfully use his mind to keep his body in a more relaxed state. That was number one. More skillfully use his mind to keep his body in a more relaxed state. So what happens on basic functionality of the mind? Your mind is typically doing one of two things pretty much all the time and pretty much for most of our lives. Your mind is typically either rehashing the past or rehearsing for the future. And that's pretty much it. That's pretty much what your thinking mind is going to be doing most of the time for most of your life. And what I would love is for you not to take my word for this, on this. Take a looky-loo. If you take a peek at what your mind is typically doing most of the time, most of your days, you will see with kind of shocking clarity that the mind has a super strong tendency to be either back in the past, rehashing stuff, conversations that you had, an argument, that hot dog you shouldn't have eaten for lunch, what happened in your first marriage or childhood, whatever it is. Or the mind will have a super strong tendency to be up ahead in the future, rehearsing for things, planning, worrying, all the stuff you got to take care of for the rest of the week, the weekend, what's going to happen in 5 years, 10 years, whatever it is. So we all remember John Lennon, is this right? Yeah, right. Okay. Well, I teach a drug court class in Albuquerque, and they tend to be on the younger side of the spectrum. And one time I said, you all remember John Lennon, right? And they were like, and I was like, oh my God, it's happening right now. It's happening. One kid even said, he goes, is he that chef? I was like, no, dude, no. We all remember John Lennon. He had a really great quote. He said, life is what happens to us when we're making other plans. Life is what happens to us. You know, life goes by in the blink of an eye anyway. It goes by even faster when our mind is perpetually and chronically either back in the past or forward in the future. The reason that we do this chronic, endless rehashing of the past and rehearsing for the future, is based on basic physiology of your brain. So your brain is beautifully designed to help you to survive. In fact, that's your brain's #1 job, is to help you to survive. Your brain is beautifully designed to help you to survive, not so beautifully designed for your happiness. So your brain is hardwired to help you actually to remember the negative stuff, because it's the negative stuff that might actually get you. It's not so concerned about helping you to remember all the great stuff that's going on in your life, because that's not the stuff that's going to get you. So if you have a path with a pear tree on it and a path with a snake on it, the hardwiring of your brain is going to help you to remember the path with the snake on it, because that's the path that might actually kill you. You go to a party. 100 people tell you, oh my God, you look terrific. What's up? One person comes up to you and is like, oh, you don't look so. Did you gain some weight? What's going on? Right? I pretty much guarantee you, as you're driving home that night, if you watch your mind won't go to those 100 people that told you you look terrific. It'll go, what the heck was wrong with her? She looked kind of fat, whatever it is. Your mind will go to that one thing that was kind of out of alignment. That was the one little negative thing. We have a tendency to gloss over the 100 million stuff that is going right in our lives, and as we have a tendency to focus on the stuff that is going wrong. This is basic hardwiring of the brain. We now call this the default mode of your brain. So as a way of helping you to survive, the brain tries to see things as problems. You want to know why? So it can help you to solve them, right? So we tend to slip into the default mode of the brain anytime you're not super duper engaged in what it is that you're doing. So sitting at a red light, anyone notice that? You're just sitting there, your mind will start to go into that default mode where you're either rehashing the past, and typically you're not rehashing all the good stuff that happened throughout the course of the day. You're rehashing the problems so that your brain can help you to try and solve those problems. Or it's up ahead in the future trying to see all the potential problems so it can help you to solve those. So left to its own devices, your brain will rob you daily of your happiness. If you rely on just basic functionality of your brain, that sense of peace of mind, right, that we all kind of hope to garner and gather in the course of our lives, whether we know it or not, will remain eternally elusive if we don't get in there and do something to kind of override that natural hardwiring of the brain. And that is absolutely and positively the invitation of these mindfulness practices. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to define mindfulness. So my style of teaching, I've been teaching for about 15 years now. My style of teaching, I try to make it really simple. The simple and more straightforward that we can make it to be able to understand it, the easier it's going to be for us to integrate it into our daily lives, right? So the simple yet correct definition of mindfulness, if you Google mindfulness, you'll get a big old juicy paragraph. That big old juicy paragraph can really be distilled down to 2 words. Mindfulness is really intentional awareness. Intentional awareness. So if I were to clap my hands and you heard that sound, that could be considered a form of unintentional awareness, meaning you didn't actually choose to become aware of that sound. I made you aware of that sound. Now, if I were to ask you to feel the weight of your body in your chair, can you feel the weight of your body in your chair? One woman, the other side, she said, "Oh, you better believe I can." So can you just kind of feel the weight of your body in your chair, just the pressure of kind of your buttons or the back of your legs against the chair? Okay. How about your feet? Can you feel your feet there? Right? Can everyone feel their feet? Okay. So that could be considered a form of mindfulness. So what you just did when I asked you to feel your feet is you went and got your mind from wherever it was, from whatever it was thinking about, and you moved it. You moved it into the present moment sensations of your feet. Because the only time you can feel your feet is while you're feeling it, AKA in the present. And then what happened if you actually did that, when I asked you to do that, suddenly there your feet were, right? They appeared to your mind, doing their little foot thing and all their foot glory. Now, if at some point I stop talking about your dang feet, what's going to happen is they're going to, again, just disappear to your mind. They're going to drop off what we call your field of awareness. You won't be noticing them anymore. And actually, this is how your whole life is functioning. Based on whatever it is that you're able to pay attention to or become aware of at any given moment in time, there's your life. And all the stuff that you aren't aware of at any given moment in time ain't a part of your life if you're not aware of it, right? So really the conundrum of these very modern, very busy times is that most modern busy people are starting to have the experience that their minds are just being pulled in 10 million different directions, just like how the children were talking about it in the video. The mind is getting pulled in 10 million different directions, and we're starting to have the experience that we have little to no control over what it is that we're actually able to pay attention to at any given moment in time. And yet that's the actual skill that we practice cultivating in mindfulness meditation, an ability to put your mind where you want it to be when you want it to be there. So what happened with my father is he did a practice called the body scan. That's where MBSR, Mindfulness-Based Stress Reduction, the 8-week program that we're launching here with you guys today. That's the very first guided meditation in the online program. It's called the body scan meditation. So the online program is a series of weekly lessons. They're about 20 minutes in length. They're with me. They're recorded sessions with me. The little modules, they're about 3 to 5 to 7 minutes in length. You can watch them all together or kind of break them up. And then the last video module in the training gives you kind of a framework for how you would actually do the practices. And then as part of the program, you get, I think, about 16 different downloadable guided meditations in the form of MP3 files. You can put on your phone, your computer, whatever it is. And the body scan meditation is one of the first meditations that we practice with in this program called Mindfulness-Based Stress Reduction. And there's a couple of reasons why we do this. And what happened to my father was he started to do the body scan meditation, which simply means he started practicing raising his level of awareness in relation to what's going on in the body. So let me ask you a question. Has anybody out there ever driven around with your parking brake on? Yeah? Okay, good. I'm not usually the only one, every once in a while, but I've totally done that. And, you know, I was driving around. I literally thought that there was something wrong with my car. I was like, what's that smell? Oh, no, you know. And goober that I am, I totally drove it to the mechanic. Let me ask you a question. Is it possible to take off your parking brake intentionally if you're unaware that it's on in the first place? Nope, right? Is it possible to intentionally take off my parking brake if I'm not aware that it's on in the first place? No. If I had known it was on, I wouldn't have taken my car to the dang mechanic, right? So I pull up to the mechanic. He's like, hey, Blondie, your parking brake's on. I was like, ha, you know, clicked it off, on about my business, whatever it is. It became a really easy fix once I was made aware that it was on in the first place. But before I was aware that it was on in the first place, I could do nothing about it. And the truth of it is that so many of us in these modern busy times are driving around with our body's internal parking brake on all the time in the form of what's called the stress response, right? So there's this beautiful book by this neuroscientist named Robert Sapolsky, and the book is called Why Zebras Don't Get Ulcers. Kind of a good title right there, right? And he did this research on the stress response in animals as compared to human beings. So the zebra's out in the Serengeti munching some grass. If it senses or sees something of real danger, it will appropriately trigger their stress response, right? So let's say they see a lion in the bushes. They trigger the stress response. Stress response is amazing. The entire body, the entire physiology of the zebra can change in the blink of an eye so as to help him to survive, right? So let's say the zebra takes off running, and let's say it's the zebra's lucky day. It's an older lion. The zebra gets away. Within about 90 seconds, of the zebra no longer having that very real perception of present moment danger, the zebra will turn off his or her stress response and go back to grazing grass. Now, us human beings are a little bit different, would you agree? I know if I just got chased by a lion, there's no way I'd be rolling through the drive-thru like 30 seconds later, I have a Big Mac. No, what we as human beings would do is we would start to rehash what just happened to us over and over. I just got chased by a lion. I'd be calling people. That night in my bed, I'd be like, lion, lion, right? Right? I'd hold on to it. The mind would rehash that over and over and over. Why does it do that? Because that lion was a really big problem that impacted my survival. And now my brain is going to work ferociously to help me to solve it. But the thing is that there is so much in life that there aren't solutions to. So there's no problem with turning on our stress response. We want that. The stress response is what enables you to, you leave a burner on your stove, you touch it, it just enables you to pull it. You don't have to be like, ooh, this is hot, what's that smell? To pull your hand off the burner, right? The stress response kicks right in, or if someone cuts you off on the highway, whatever it is. There's no problem with turning our stress response on. The problem that we're seeing in modern times, and why you all laughed when I asked you about experiences of stress, is that we're not only turning on our stress response, we're turning it on and leaving it on day after day after day after day. And so many times, it's this activation of the stress response, and it's totally inappropriate for what's actually happening to us in that present moment. We're activating our stress response in our body. Our stress response is only interested in you being able to survive the next 1 to 3 minutes. That's all it cares about. So it will literally suck resources from other essential elements of the body to help you survive. Your blood will get thicker, you get muscle tension all over so as to protect your internal organs, your blood pressure will go up, all sorts of crazy stuff happen in the body. And we could just be sitting at our desk on our computer. Or we could be sitting at a red light rehashing an argument you had with one of the students or whatever it is, and yet the body doesn't always know the difference, right? What is happening here is we're not actually using our mind most skillfully to bring ourselves benefit. So that's another way to understand what we learn in these mindfulness practices, is we're learning how to more skillfully use our minds to create benefit for ourselves and those around us. That's what we're learning how to do in mindfulness meditative practices, how to more skillfully use our minds to create benefit for ourselves and those around us. So to go back to the case of my father, what he learned how to do is first raise his level of awareness in relation to the body. And what he discovered is that his stomach would actually be seizing up weeks before it would turn into a full-blown episode. But he, like most people on the planet, does this very specific thing as a form of stress management, which is not what I teach. I do not teach stress management. You are all already managing your stress. You wouldn't be here otherwise, right? What we're interested in is in stress reduction, bringing it down. But as a form of stress management, what most people unintentionally do with their stress is they start to filter out some of those experiences of stress from the body. Because the truth of it is it doesn't feel so good in the body to be in states of stress. I've never heard anyone say, oh my God, I'm so stressed out, and I feel kind of terrific. Totally doesn't happen like that. No, we start to feel yucky. We get that kind of, what I call my feeling. We release adrenaline and cortisol into the bloodstream, which kind of readies us to fight or flight or whatever it is. But sitting at your desk, it feels horrible to have those hormones coursing through the bloodstream. The muscle tension, the headaches, the jaw aches, the sleep issues, et cetera, et cetera. So what my father learned how to do was first become aware that his parking brake was on. And for him, it was in its stomach. For everyone, it's a little bit different. And then used his practice of being able to hold his mind on his stomach to be able to relax his stomach. I'm going to take you through a little simple little practice right now, just in what I described. You can do this with your eyes open or closed. But all I want you to do is I want everyone now to move your mind now into your belly. And first, I just want you to become intentionally aware or mindful of whatever it is that you're feeling right now in your belly. Maybe you're feeling full or hungry, tense or relaxed. It doesn't matter. We're just noticing what's already there. And then just based on whatever it is that you're feeling right now in your belly, can you use your mind to soften your belly? Can you use your mind to allow your belly to just kind of flub out a little bit, even if it's just a little bit? Just kind of softening the belly. So for some of you, that might have felt actually kind of good. If you tend to hold your tension in your belly, that could have felt a little bit good. Sometimes we hold it in our shoulders, and then we can do a shoulder meditation, where you bring your awareness, you bring your mind into the shoulders, and you get to go from this to this. Is developing the skill, the ability to more skillfully use your mind to create benefit or to turn off your body's stress response when it's no longer necessary. And this is where we begin with mindfulness practices. For my father's case, we had all seen the giant vat of Tums show up in his bathroom counter or in his car, but that little background stomachache had kind of become the new norm for him, and this is what happens for a lot of us. You wake up Monday morning, we have a little background stomachache, anxiety stomachache. What do? You still got to go to work, you got to get the kids out the door, you got to go to your 10 million meetings, so we start to ignore it. And then Tuesday comes, there's that little tension bellyache. Your brain saw you not freak out about it, learning to ignore it. So it'll start to filter out the information from the body as habit, right? To help you kind of manage your stress. But listen to this, it will never bring our lives into greater balance to continue to ignore the body. Never, ever, ever. So that's where we begin with mindfulness practices. Raising our level of awareness in relation to what it is that we're feeling in the body, and then developing the skill or the capacity through some practice to be able to use your mind to keep your body in more relaxed states when it's appropriate, right? And it's a skill. And how do you develop a skill? You got to practice. You got to practice. And that's what the 8-week program is designed to help you do. Create and cultivate this skill through an ongoing practice. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to shift gears a little bit, and I'm going to first go over some of the misconceptions. Sometimes when I say the word meditation, even though it's out there and there's tons of clinical evidence, the MBSR program that we're sharing with you here is the #1 most researched program, internally directed program of them all. If you were to Google mindfulness-based stress reduction, you will see thousands upon thousands of very real scholarly articles, publications on the efficacy of what we're going to be sharing with you in this 8-week program. This is absolutely and unequivocally the real deal based on research. But sometimes when I say the word meditation, people get kind of some misconceptions. It still sounds kind of woo-woo, and am I going to have to chant or shave my head or stop showering or whatever it is that you might associate with meditation. No, none of the above. So I'm going to start just kind of going through some of the basic misperceptions first, and then I'll move into defining it, and then I'll take you through a little bit of a practice, and then we'll have some time for Q&A. Really the impetus behind me coming here today was to share with you this style, this approach of learning mindfulness, so as to get you interested and hopefully motivated to take that online 8-week program that we'll be offering. So one of the biggest misperceptions that people have about meditation is a lot of people think that it has something to do with religious stuff. Woo-woo, alternative, religious, spiritual, and it can seem to be like a weird thing to bring into a school setting or more clinical environments. Let me tell you 100% that MBSR, what I teach, is in no way, shape, or form have any real background in religion. It's like if you were to learn how to read, right, reading the Bible could be considered a religious act, but reading itself is in no way, shape, or form religious, right? So we're teaching an aspect that is used. Every major religion in the world utilizes some aspect, some form of mindfulness practice. But in MBSR, we share the teachings just distilled down to the basic evidence-based teachings without any of the religious teachings infused in. So it's in no way, shape, or form going to counterindicate or, be a problem with anyone's religious or spiritual beliefs. That's not any type of a problem. I teach in all of the major hospitals in Albuquerque. I teach at Presbyterian, the New Mexico Heart Institute. I've been at the University of New Mexico for 15 years now, and it's not to bring in religious or spiritual teachings. It's the evidence-based practices. Another big misperception that a lot of people have about meditation is a lot of people think that meditation is learning how to escape from your daily life a little bit, right? Like you let yourself get all stressed out on a daily basis, and then we need to remove ourselves and kind of lock ourselves in a room, light some candles, kind of escape to our happy place, or, grab some sprouts and sit on a mountain somewhere and kind of escape from all of our daily stresses. And this is actually a misperception about what meditation actually is. Meditation is literally about the exact opposite from learning how to escape from your daily life or escape from your daily activities. What mindfulness practices are really all about is about developing the skill or the ability to become more present in your daily life, more present in your daily activity. And then I'm going to show you as clearly as I can in the program how actually when you learn how to become more present in your daily life and activities, this in and of itself will work to reduce your stress. Now, this can seem kind of confusing. I heard from people sometimes, they'll be like, well, wait a second, I'm not sure I want to be more present in my daily life. I've got a really stressful daily life. Isn't that just going to make me get more stressed out? And the answer to that is a 100% no. It will never make you more stressed out to become more present in your daily life. What's going on there is just a little bit of a misperception about what it means to actually be present, which is what the heart of what I teach and was at the heart of what you'll be learning and learning how to do in mindfulness-based stress reduction practices. So it's not about escaping. It's not about needing to vacate the premises and go to your happy place meditation. It's literally the exact opposite. How do I bring this certain degree of presence of mind right into the heart of my daily activities, and then how that actual presence of mind will and can indubitably work to reduce our stress. The next major misperception that most people have about meditation, and why most people find meditation hard to do, or they think they can't do it, or it's not for them, is because most people think that meditation is about learning how to empty their minds. Right? We have this notion that when we sit down to meditate, we're just going to be like, take a deep breath and just wipe your mind clean. And I took a yoga class not too long ago, and this sweet little teacher, she said, for the next 90 minutes, I just want you to leave all your problems outside the yoga room. And I was like, girl, if I could do that, I wouldn't need the dang yoga in the first place, right? So how do you actually do that? It sounds amazing, but how do you actually do that? And has anybody ever woken up in the middle of the night and you can't go back to sleep? Right? What's usually stopping you from being able to go back to sleep when you wake up? Right? Get that hand gesture. I get a couple of hand gestures, but mostly this one, right? Your mind. You're thinking about stuff. It's 3:23 in the morning, and you would love nothing more to be able to not be thinking about that which you're in the process of thinking. But here's the kicker. Most people are never actually taught how letting go functions on the level of mind. We're never taught that. Letting go. If you live long enough on the planet, at some point or other, someone in your life is going to say, gosh, is that still bugging you? Well, you should just let it go. And you're like, oh, great, thanks. Well, you let it go. It'd be a lot easier, right? So when your mind has a hold of something, many times we would love nothing more to be able to let something go, but how does that actually function on the level of mind? So what most people try to do, most people get caught up, is they just try to push away their thoughts. They try to not think about stuff. We have this idea that we'll just clear out the mind. And then when we sit down to meditate, we start thinking about that hot dog we shouldn't have eaten for lunch, but hot dogs are so delicious. Oh, no, wait, I'm supposed to be meditating. Okay, come back to the breath. Now I'm thinking about that wiener dog I saw at the park. He was so cute. Maybe I should get a wiener dog. That would totally help to reduce my stress. No, wait, no, I'm not supposed to be thinking about that. I'm supposed to be meditating. And you come back, oh, now my wiener dog's for some weird reason wearing a polo shirt, and that's weird, but it looks really cute. Maybe it's because I need to go shopping this weekend, and right, and your mind goes and goes and goes and goes, and then the bell bongs, and you're like, was that meditation? I literally just thought about a wiener dog for like 20 minutes, or I worried. I don't think I can do this, right? But the good news is that meditation is not about learning how to empty the mind. It's not about stopping the mind. It's not about finding the off switch to the mind. It's about developing the skill through practice of learning how to let some of those things surface in the mind and then just let them move on through, let them go. The research actually shows us that the longest a person ever went without having a thought was only about 15 seconds. And it was a monk who'd been meditating for over 50 years, and he made the cover of National Geographic. And he could only go about 15 seconds without having a thought. Now you might say, well, how do they measure that he went about, how do you measure something like that? This takes me to my first important point of this specific teaching, and that is that a thought cannot take place without a physiological response. A thought cannot take place without a physiological response. So at any given time in the thinking mind, you're having one of three basic kinds of thoughts. You're having positive or pleasant thoughts. You're having neutral thoughts, which actually makes up the vast majority of what's going on in the thinking mind at any given moment in time. And you're also having negative or unpleasant or stressful thoughts. Let's take a look at the first type of thought, a positive or pleasant thought. Let's say my sister's coming to visit, and let's say I happen to love my sister, which I don't. I hate my, no, I'm just kidding. Totally love my sister. So let's say I start thinking about her coming to visit and how much fun we're going to have, and you can kind of start to see the physiological responses right there on my face. I start to smile, my eyes might light up. It's probably doing more than that. It's probably changing the way that I'm breathing, probably impacting my cardiovascular system, impacting the degree to which I'm holding my body in physiological tension. All of this triggered by my mind engaging in positive or pleasant thoughts. Neutral thoughts tend to create more or less neutral physiological changes in the body. They can be as neutral as simply some neurons firing in the brain. But what we're interested in for stress reduction is what happens to us when we engage in negative or unpleasant or stressful thoughts, because those two create a whole cascade of very real changes in the body. I talked about some of them. Our blood pressure goes up, our muscles tense, we clench our jaw, our faces look like this, we start to release adrenaline and cortisol in the body, et cetera, et cetera. And then what most people try to do to try and get away from their stress is they either try to fight against those negative thoughts, just stop thinking about that, or we need to move into distractions. We need to watch, 6 hours of TV just to be able to go to sleep, or drink a glass of Chardonnay that's this big to be able to take it down a notch, or whatever it is. And in the microcosm, or in the short term, that can be effective as a form of stress management. But that's not stress reduction. It's just distracting ourselves away from those thoughts so that we can come down a little bit. We can do better than that, okay? So now I'm going to move into defining mindfulness meditation. The definition that I use, and this is in your course, so you shouldn't feel like I hope everybody in here signs up for the course. I'm biased, obviously, but this is all in the course, and it'll take you through the practices so you'll be able to experience it for yourself. But the definition that I use goes a little something like this. Mindfulness meditation is mental development and the cultivation of awareness. I'll say this again. Meditation is just mental development and the cultivation of awareness. So now what do I mean by that? Let's take a look at the first part of that statement. Meditation is mental development. By mental development, I mean developing the skill or the ability to stabilize your mind a little bit, excuse me, and not letting it wander off and stay wandered off into thought. I'll say this again. Mental development is developing the skill or the ability, through practice, it's the only way, of something that we call mental stabilization, which, whether you know it or not, we all really, really want. The opposite of mental stabilization was just what those children were describing in the video. When the mind is all over the place, you can't control it, it keeps lingering and loitering in unhelpful and unbeneficial places. That is what we call a destabilized mind, and that goes hand in hand with a stressful experience of life. So developing the skill or the ability to stabilize the mind a little bit, not let it wander off and stay wandered off into thought. So this part of the equation, the wandering off into thought part of the equation, is something that we call layering. Layering. And every single one of us in this room and beyond participates in this process called layering. You might actually be doing it right this moment. What layering is when you have one initial thought, and the thought could be something like, oh, I got to pick up milk later on at the grocery store. And then you might spend the next 10 seconds, 30 seconds, 1 minute, 5 minutes, 10 minutes even sometimes in this kind of ceaseless and uncontrolled layering process of just thought after thought after thought after thought. And you start off thinking about needing to pick up milk at the grocery store. And a couple minutes later, you're kind of daydreaming about life on the dairy farm or whatever it is. And you're not always 100% sure how you got there in the mind. I know this has happened to me. Maybe it's happened to some of you. I've been at one end of my house. And I don't have a particularly large house. I have at one end of my house, and I'll have the thought, oh, I got to get that book from the other end of my house. And I'll start thinking, oh, Karen gave me that book. I love Karen. She's got that beautiful curly hair. Got this dumb straight hair. I wish I had beautiful curly hair as well. And by the time I get to the other end of my house, what's happened? I have no idea what I went over there for. I'm like curling my hair going, this isn't right. I know this has happened to me as well. Maybe it's happened to some of you. I've driven places. Right? I'm pulling up into the parking lot of my destination. Can't really remember a darn thing about the drive over. I paid just enough attention so that I hopefully didn't roll over the mailman. But beyond that, my mind was kind of lost in these ceaseless and uncontrolled layering processes of just thought after thought after thought after thought. And this also goes hand in hand with the experience of living life on automatic pilot, right? Someone's talking to you, someone's sharing with you, a kid needs your help, whatever it is. And your mind, not because you're a bad person, but your mind is a million miles away just because that's kind of all we've trained our mind to do, is just do whatever it is. And we lose that ability to be fully present for the others in our lives, for the most meaningful experience of our lives. And then the quality of life has a tendency to go down as well. So how we practice developing the skill or the ability to stabilize our mind a little bit as it relates to mindfulness practice, takes us to the second part of that definition, which was the cultivation of awareness. And by cultivation of awareness, I mean training the mind to come to and be in the present. So now our definition goes a little something like this. Mindfulness meditation is simply developing the skill or the ability through practice of stabilizing the mind a little bit, not letting it wander off and stay wandered off all the time in some of those ceaseless and uncontrolled layering processes, which are truly one of the main sources of most of our daily stress. Because as I mentioned earlier, if something even remotely negative happens to us, we don't think about it just once. We layer. We're like, oh, this and this, and lying, right? In bed at night, that's what the mind has a tendency to do if we don't get in there and do something with our minds. Mindfulness practice, developing the skill, the ability to stabilize that mind a little bit. And how we do that, how we practice mental stabilization within the context of mindfulness trainings, is through training the mind to come to and be in the present. That's what we do. There's a whole variety of different practices, different ways of doing this. In the 8-week program that we'll be sharing with you, we do eating meditations, we do walking meditations, we do lying down meditations, which are fantastic for sleep issues. We do breathing meditations. Yoga, when it's done correctly, is simply a form of a moving meditation. So there's tons and tons of different ways of going about doing it. What I'm going to take you through is a little bit of a simple body scan meditation, along with a little bit of a breathing meditation. So anytime you practice moving your mind into the sensations of the body, excuse me, that turns out to be a movement of mind into the present. Because the only time you can feel your body is while you're feeling it, aka in the present. Your body only ever exists in the present. Your mind, not so much, right? We can live years of our lives, and most people do, with their minds either back in the past or forward in the future, but the body cannot do this. So earlier, when I asked you to feel the weight of your body in the chair or your feet on the floor, that turned out to be a movement of mind into the present, right? The only time you can feel your feet, the only time your feet exist is in the present. And then what's going to happen to every single one of us in this little meditation I'm going to take you through is your mind ain't going to want to stay there feeling your feet or feeling your breath, because what you've primarily trained your mind to do is worry about stuff, think about stuff, rehash and rehearse. So your mind is going to want to go back to rehashing and rehearsing. And here's the practice of meditation, really and honestly, truly. It's this simple. When you notice your mind going off, you practice going and getting your mind and bringing it back again to where you want it to be when you want it to be there. And then it's going to go off again, and we just do the same thing. We go and get it, and we bring it back again. And it goes off again, and we bring it back again. And each time we bring our minds back into the object or the focal point for our meditation, which in the body scan meditation is just on the sensations of the body, or in a breathing meditation, it's simply on the sensations of breathing. You have to let go of whatever it is that you were thinking about, because the mind can't actually be in two places at once. So you come back to the feeling of the feet, the feeling of the breath, whatever it is that we're focusing on. You have to let go of your worries about your mortgage or about your kids or your coworkers or whatever it is, so as to become fully present with the breath or the body or whatever it is that you're focusing on for your meditation. Does that make sense to folks? Great, let's do it. So I'm going to take you through a little bit of a guided meditation, and that's how we do the online program, is with those series of guided meditations with me. So in a guided meditation, it's kind of great. You don't have to be good at anything. You don't even really have to know what you're doing. You just have to try and follow the guidance as best you can. You can do the practice with your eyes either open or closed. It doesn't matter. If you're super tired, you might want to do it with your eyes just a little bit open, right? You also want to look to sit in a way in your body that you're comfortable, but you're not too comfortable, right? Can you guess why you don't want to be too comfortable? You don't want to fall asleep. But if you do start to doze off, you can start to see the capability it might have for sleep issues. I meditate every single night to go to sleep, and then throughout the course of the night when I wake up, which I invariably do, I move right into a guided meditation to help myself relax. But here we don't necessarily want to be like sawing logs during the meditation, right? So seeing if you can sit in your chair in your body in a way that you're both relaxed and kind of alert at the same time. So just finding that posture in your body now. And then, as I mentioned, you can have your eyes either open or closed, doesn't matter. And just following the guidance as best you can. So for this first piece of things, it's just kind of allowing yourself to feel into the body. Just kind of letting yourself feel whatever it is that you're feeling. So maybe you're chilly, or maybe you're warm. Maybe you're hungry or you're full. Maybe your back hurts or you feel pretty good. Just whatever it is, just kind of allowing your mind to just kind of drop into this present moment experience of just sitting here and being in your body, whatever that feels like to you. And then we're just going to start to practice being a little bit more intentional with our mind. So now just moving your mind down and into your feet. And just practicing becoming present for the feeling of your feet as a way of stabilizing the mind a little bit, giving your mind just this one thing to do just for now, which is just feel your feet on the ground. And then just seeing if you can use your mind to allow your feet to grow just a little bit heavier on the floor, whatever that feels like to you. And then just kind of lifting your mind up and into your legs. And just like we did with the feet, just first becoming intentionally aware, mindful of whatever it is you're feeling in the legs. And then again, just seeing if you can use your mind to allow your legs to just fully release and settle into the support of the chair and the feet on the floor. And then lifting the mind up and into the belly. Just as we did before, so just first noticing whatever it is that you're feeling in the belly. And again, just seeing if you can use your mind to just allow your belly to just let go a little bit. That's what relaxation is in the body. It's a form of letting go. So just letting go right now in the belly. Noticing what that feels like. And then as the belly starts to soften, just seeing if you can notice or become aware of the breath kind of interacting with the belly, maybe moving the belly a little bit, lifting and lowering. And I know there are 600 people in the room. There's a lot of noises. It's okay. It's not about removing ourselves from the world. It's about being able to do this right amidst the chaos of the world. So we're just practicing. So letting the sounds around you just do as they do. As you practice, just feeling your breath. And now just kind of feeling your breath wherever you can feel it most easily and vividly in your body. It might still be at the belly, or maybe up into the chest. Or maybe you most easily feel your breath at the nose or the back of the throat. It doesn't matter. Just seeing where you can most easily and vividly feel your breath. And just gently asking the mind to just stay with this feeling of breath. Stabilizing the mind for even a moment or so on just this feeling of breath. And the mind will go off, it'll leave the breath, it'll start to worry about stuff or think about stuff. It's no problem. Just simply practice going and getting our minds and bringing them back again to where we want them to be, which for right now is just on this feeling of breath. So just practicing giving your mind just this one thing to do, just for now, which is feel the breath. The lifting and the lowering through the body as you breathe. You can't stop the waves of life, but you sure as heck can learn how to surf. And that's what we're doing, surfing the waves of our breath, just for right now. Just about one more minute. You're doing great. Mind wanders back into thoughts of the past or the future. Just practice letting go of some of those thoughts by coming back to this feeling of breath. It's not fighting the mind. It's not trying to not have thoughts. The mind secretes thoughts like the stomach secretes enzymes. It's just what it does. But we're practicing us being in charge of the mind. So practicing letting go of the thoughts by coming back to the breath. Just letting go by coming back. Letting go by coming back. Back to this feeling of breath. Giving it your full awareness, your full presence. That's what we're practicing as best we can. riding the waves of your breath. Just coming back to the breath. And you can go ahead and open your eyes as the meditation comes to an end. So it's kind of hard to do a little practice in a room of 600 plus people, but that's why we practice, right? So we practice so that we develop a certain degree of mental stability so that we can bring that mental stability out with us into the world. And then you're in front of your students and the stuff is hitting the fan, there's chaos. You can bring that degree of mental stability to your classrooms, to your kids, to your coworkers, whatever it is. Make sense to folks? Yeah? Does anybody have any questions?